Hello there, my dear sleepy listener. I'm so glad you're here in this quiet hour when the world has exhaled, and your thoughts begin to float like feathers over still water. Tonight, I invite you into a question, not one that needs answering, but one that gently holds itself open, like a cupped hand in the dark. Can a second ever be touched, not counted, not measured, not marked on a clock or a phone, but touched, felt, held for a breath longer than it should last? Can something so fleeting ever become soft, ever settle against the skin like silk or snow before you drift away into peaceful slumber? Please take a moment to like this video. Leave a gentle comment about your favourite moment of science. And subscribe to keep these bedtime stories coming. If you'd like, share where you're listening from and what time zone your dreams begin in. Now, dim the lights, get cozy, and let your curiosity float alongside the stars. There's no sound when a second begins. It doesn't arrive with a trumpet or a sparkle in the air. It slips in quietly, replacing the one before it, without you ever noticing. And yet, it is the smallest piece of time we've ever truly learned to trust. The second. We've divided it, multiplied it, stretched it thin across satellites and tucked it into the language of love and memory. But have you ever really felt one right now? As you lie here, your body is full of them. Every breath, every blink, every small flicker of thought moves through seconds like footsteps across a soft forest floor. But try to touch one, just one, and it vanishes. By the time you think this is a second, it has already passed. You can mark it, measure it, predict it, but you can never quite hold it in your hands. A second is too fast for fingers, too small for memory, too slow for light, too long for atoms, but it is just right for being alive. Let's float into that together. Imagine lying in a quiet room. A clock ticks nearby. You hear it 1, 2, 3. Each tick, a second. But where is it? Where does the second begin? Between the ticks, inside the sound. Before your brain recognizes the noise, your ears may hear the rhythm, but your mind only catches the echo, and even then, you're a moment too late. Some scientists say our brains live in the past about 80 milliseconds behind the present moment, because that's how long it takes for reality to be assembled inside our minds. So even as you think, this is now, the second has already moved on. Isn't that strange? You never truly meet the second. You brush past it, like turning a corner and glimpsing someone you almost remember but never quite knew. And yet you build your life inside these moments. 1 second to speak, 1 second to decide, 1 second to blink, to smile, to change direction entirely. A second is enough for laughter, enough for a gasp, enough for the beginning of love, or the ending of fear. It is small, but full, and maybe that's what makes it so tender, that it arrives without asking for attention, and leaves without needing applause, just like the wind, or a cat slipping through a room, or the way a shadow shifts without your noticing. Right now, another one has passed, and another, and you are still here. Still floating in them, still breathing through them. There is no rush. The seconds will keep arriving. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to grasp. Because maybe a second isn't something you hold. Maybe it's something that holds you, wraps itself around your thought, around your pulse, around your dreaming. Maybe a second is a cradle, and you are resting inside it now. So don't worry if you missed it. You didn't. You were already there. even before you knew to look, and the next one, it's already on its way, slipping toward you like a feather on a still lake, landing without ripples, leaving without sound. Just another second, and another, and you, gently floating within them all. You are resting now, deeper than before. The clock is somewhere out of reach, and your body no longer asks for anything, only stillness. But even here, in this gentle hush between thoughts, there's something curious taking place. You blinked, not long ago, perhaps a second, perhaps more. But during that moment, the entire world disappeared, and you didn't notice. The light faded, the room vanished, your vision, for just a slice of time, was gone, and still, you never felt its absence, because your brain quietly, invisibly, filled in the gap, like an artist smoothing brushstrokes, like a storyteller softening the seams between sentences. That pause, that brief blindness, was a second you lived through, but never truly touched. This happens constantly. You blink between 15 and 20 times every minute. Each blink lasts about a third of a second. That means every few minutes, you spend several full seconds with your eyes closed to the world, and yet you don't remember it. You don't feel that time was missing. The seconds pass through you like a breeze between tall grass brushing everything, changing nothing. Scientists call this process blink suppression. Your brain doesn't want you to notice the dark, so it edits it out. It takes the world before the blink and the world after, and sews them together into one seamless fabric. And the stitch, that's where the second goes. Gone, but not lost. Used, but not seen. Isn't that remarkable? Your body takes time away from you to protect your eyes, to clear and moisten and rest them, and your brain quietly keeps the story flowing so you never notice the blackout. But the second still happened. You just didn't feel it. So what is a second? If it can pass without your awareness, is time still real when no one notices it? Some philosophers would say no. Some physicists would say yes. And some poets might say that's the most honest second of all, the one that asks for nothing. But here's another mystery. If time can vanish while your eyes are closed, where else might it hide every day? You walk through moments that your brain gently erases. The space between heartbeats. The millisecond where you almost speak, but don't. The second between music and memory, when a note begins, but before you realize what it is, these aren't empty, they're full. Full of your body being itself, full of processing, healing, resting, resetting. Time isn't always something you feel. Sometimes it's something you ride through, half dreaming, half listening. You don't measure those seconds, but they shape you all the same, just like a blink. And even when your eyes are open, you don't actually see the world in a continuous stream. You see in flashes, snapshots, moments stitched together so finely you forget there were gaps. Your visual system samples light, builds an illusion of motion, creates a now that never quite existed. You live in a highlight reel, but it feels like real time, because your brain, ever faithful, wants you to feel complete, wants the second to feel seamless. So it hides the gaps, softens the edges, and lets you believe the moment is whole. But sometimes, just sometimes, you notice, like when a loud noise interrupts a blink, or when something changes, and you realize you missed the transition. It's like waking up in the middle of a sentence. Something shifted, but you were already behind, and that too is part of the second. It isn't always a drum beat. Sometimes it's a gap, a soft hollow between two frames of meaning. and in that hollow you drift, not asleep. Not awake, not thinking, not forgetting, just being. You don't need to fill every moment with awareness. You don't need to hold every second by the hand. Some seconds want to pass without a name, to glide through you like sleep, to leave no mark but rest. So let them blink past you. Let the momentless moments become soft around the edges. Let the space between the frames carry you. You're not missing time. You're living it gently, without weight, without worry. You're inside the pause, and the pause is inside you. So blink again, if you wish. The world will be waiting just where you left it, and the next second will arrive quietly, as it always does. You've been drifting through gentle things, through blinks, through pauses, through seconds that pass like sighs between thoughts. But now you float backward, farther, farther still, beyond your breath, beyond the world, beyond memory itself. You're moving toward the edge of time, not to its end, but to its beginning, the beginning of seconds, of the very first one. There is no light here yet, only density, only heat. You're floating at the edge of a moment called the Planck time, so small, so strange. It defies everything you know. A single Planck time lasts about 0. Seconds, that's 10 to 43. You can't feel it. You can't find it. It's the limit, the shortest unit of time the laws of physics can describe. Beyond it, no one knows. Time, as we understand it, doesn't exist there. But just after it, that's where something astonishing happened. The universe took its first breath. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion. It was an expansion. A blooming from something smaller than small into something vast and shimmering with potential. And with that blooming, time began. It wasn't just matter that was born, it was moments. The very first second wasn't counted. There was no clock, no heartbeat, no witness. But it happened, and it changed everything. In that first second, the universe expanded unimaginably fast, a process called cosmic inflation. The forces of nature began to separate. Gravity took shape. Light began to think about moving. And then, just fractions of a second later, particles formed. Quarks, electrons, tiny bits of everything that would one day become stars, planets, oceans, and you. You are made from particles that cooled inside that first second. You are a story that began in time's first breath. Let that thought settle around you, not as a fact to memorize, but as a wonder to feel. The second you're living in now is not separate from the first one. It is a ripple from it, still expanding, still stretching. You are riding waves from a moment you cannot imagine, but are deeply connected to, and though billions of years have passed, time has not forgotten its beginning. We still hear it as we heard in our last dream in the cosmic microwave background. The faint glow left from when the universe cooled enough for light to finally move freely. That happened about 380,000 years after the first second. But even today, its soft, ancient hum surrounds us. It is the lullaby of beginnings. So what is a second? Is it the tick of a watch? The space between blinks? Or is it something more sacred? Something born at the moment reality learned how to stretch. Here's something quiet to hold. Seconds are not eternal. There was a time when they did not exist, and one day they may end. As the universe continues to expand, time may one day slow, or fragment, or disappear altogether. We don't know. Some theories suggest the universe may collapse again, Others say it will continue expanding forever, growing cold and dark and slow. In that far future, a second may be meaningless, or stretched so wide that nothing happens inside it at all. But for now, in this small and bright sliver of cosmic life, a second is everything. A second is enough to laugh, to cry, to notice a star, to wonder. It is a breath of the universe that you are lucky enough to live inside. So lie here, gently drifting, and remember, the moment you're in began 13.8 billion years ago, and you are still part of it, still held by it, still unfolding within it. The present second is not alone. It carries the weight of every moment before it, and still it floats softly, just like you, just like now. You're floating back toward the body now, not fast, not rushed, but gently as if time itself were exhaling you into place. Not quite asleep, not quite awake, suspended. The vastness of the cosmos still lingers behind your eyes, but now the stars begin to fade and something closer rises in their place. You. The universe no longer surrounds you. It is you. You, with a chest that rises and falls, and a pulse that keeps the beat, and 1,000 hidden rhythms that never make a sound. But if you listen closely, closer than before, you'll hear them. A language of seconds, spoken not in words, but in motion. Your body keeps time, not with gears or batteries, but with patterns, repeating, evolving, flowing. Think of your heart. Each beat is a moment, a second, more or less, depending on where you are in your story. A child's heart may beat 120 times a minute. Yours, perhaps 60 or 70. Each beat an anchor, each pause, a space between. It's not a perfect clock. It shifts with breath, with thought, with dreams. But that shifting, that soft irregularity is its beauty. It means you are alive. Now follow the breath. Inhale, exhale. The breath is a slower second. Longer, deeper. It takes about 4 to 6 seconds to complete a full breath. And with every one, you mark time, not in numbers, but in knowing. Knowing when to hold, when to let go, when to wait. Your breath isn't a clock, but it's a rhythm, and rhythm is time. Time made soft. Every system in your body moves in cycles, from the blinking of your eyes to the digestion of a single bite. From the electrical signals rippling through your brain to the quiet pulses of hormones released by secret inner clocks. One of those clocks deep inside your brain is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. It's a tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons resting just above where your optic nerves cross. It watches light, it listens to sunrise and dusk, and tells your body what kind of time it is, when to wake, when to rest, when to release melatonin and begin the long, sweet drift into sleep. This clock doesn't count seconds. It feels them. It aligns you with the turning of the earth. And yet, it isn't alone. Every organ in your body, your liver, your stomach, your skin has its own rhythm. Its own way of ticking forward, quietly keeping time without telling you it's doing so. Even your cells run on clocks. Little loops of genetic expression turning on and off, over and over, in cycles that last minutes, hours, days. Inside each of these cycles, seconds pass unnoticed, but they matter, because just like a song, if even one beat falls too far behind, everything shifts, and you feel it. Jet lag, mood changes, the strange dissonance of a body out of sync. These are not failures, they're reminders that your body listens to time, even when your mind forgets to. Here's something quieter still. You're aware of seconds even when you're not counting them. Try it now. Don't look at a clock. Just sit with yourself and guess when a second has passed, and then another, and then another. You can feel it, can't you? A subtle ticking in your attention, a pulse in the space between thoughts. Even if your guess is off, the rhythm is there. Because you've lived in seconds your whole life. You've spoken in them, laughed in them, paused in them. A second is the time it takes for someone to say your name, for your hand to touch the water, for a thought to rise and vanish again. You may not measure them, but you remember them. And here's the mystery. No one knows exactly how your body does it. There is no single organ called a timer, no single place where seconds are stored, and yet you move in them, you breathe them, you blink them, you are them, like waves in the ocean that don't know they're water until they meet the shore. So rest easy in that rhythm. You don't need to capture it. You don't need to define it. You're already dancing to the music, already singing with the breath, already moving through 1,000 silent seconds that carry you, even now, towards sleep. Let them pass. Let them hold you. Let your body keep time as it always has. And let this moment, this one, right now, be enough. You drift now through quieter waters. The breath is steady. The weight of your limbs has softened. Your thoughts are no longer loud. They're slow ripples in a still pond. And in this stillness, your mind begins to reveal a secret. It never truly waits for the present moment. It tries to get there first. Before you even realize a second has begun, your brain is already guessing how it will unfold. Like a chess player who always moves one turn ahead. Like a conductor raising the baton before the music begins. Your mind is not just a mirror of now, it's a prediction machine. You see this in small, strange ways. Imagine you're catching a ball. It flies toward you. You reach out. But by the time your eyes register its position, it has already moved. And yet your hand arrives where it needs to be. Not because you saw the ball perfectly, but because your brain predicted its path. It guessed the future and met it early. This happens all the time. Even now, your brain is predicting what the next word will be, what your next breath will feel like, what silence will sound like just after this sentence ends. It is always slightly ahead, nudging reality into something smooth, something continuous. Scientists call this the predictive coding theory. It suggests that the brain is not simply reacting to the world, but creating a model of what it expects. Moment by moment, it builds a simulation, then waits for sensory input to confirm or correct it. If the world matches the prediction, all is calm. If not, a surprise, a spark, an adjustment. You may not notice this process, but it shapes everything you experience, even the rhythm of speech, even the feeling of music. A beat falls where you expect it, and you feel a quiet satisfaction. It's right, but when something is off, you sense it immediately. Because your mind predicted something else, and the second betrayed your expectations. That's how deeply the brain depends on time. It doesn't simply flow with it. It creates the rhythm in advance. This is why, when you watch someone speak, your brain adjusts the timing of what you hear and what you see. If the lips and the voice are even slightly out of sync, you notice. Because your prediction has been gently broken, you can't help it. Your brain wants the second to arrive exactly as it imagined. But the world, in all its beauty and complexity, rarely plays perfectly. And so your mind is constantly revising, updating, fine-tuning its internal clock to better align with what actually unfolds. It's a dance, not a solo. And the rhythm of that dance is built 1 second at a time. Here's a softer way to see it. Think of a cat watching a falling leaf. Its body stays still, but the tail flicks. The eyes follow. The paws prepare. The cat isn't thinking in language. It's predicting. Your brain does the same, 1,000 times a day. You see a shadow shift, and without thinking, you adjust your step. You hear someone inhale beside you, and you pause, knowing they're about to speak. You're always catching the future just before it lands, and yet you rarely feel early. You feel present, because the prediction is so soft, so seamless. You don't notice the guess, only the result. This is how the brain keeps you feeling whole. It smooths the future into the present before you can see the seam. But sometimes the seam shows, like when something startles you, a sudden noise, a change in rhythm, a sentence that ends too soon. In those moments, you catch the prediction failing. You see the future flicker, and you feel the second. Not the soft second of breath and rhythm, but the sharp one, the one that arrives differently than expected. Those are the seconds you remember. The ones that broke the script. Everything else the ordinary. Rhythmic now passes like smooth silk over your thoughts. And that's the wonder of it. Most of the time, your brain succeeds. It matches the world with the rhythm it imagined, and you float through it without friction. So tonight, as you lie still, as the quiet begins to carry you, remember this. You're not just watching time pass, you're shaping it, sculpting each second before it arrives. And even as sleep approaches, even as the senses fade, your brain will continue this soft guessing. It will dream in rhythms. It will simulate worlds. It will whisper futures you'll never remember. All because it wants to keep you steady, to keep the seconds smooth, to keep the now gentle enough to fall asleep inside. You drift now through a different kind of stillness, not the hush of the breath, not the pause between dreams, but a silence made of precision, clean, mechanical, unwavering. A silence so exact it barely feels human. And yet, here you are, approaching the heart of how we've come to measure a thing we can never quite touch. Time, more specifically, the second. This time, you're not following stars, not counting tides, not listening to your breath. You're standing beside a quiet chamber, no larger than a suitcase, where atoms hum like tuning forks in frequencies too fine for flesh to feel. This is an atomic clock, and here in this tiny, gleaming stillness, humanity keeps its most perfect seconds. It began with a question: how can we define a second not by the Earth's spin, not by the sway of the sun, but by something unchanging? And the answer came from the heart of matter itself, from a quiet, silvery metal called cesium. Cesium atoms have a peculiar gift. When they are placed in the right conditions, cold, isolated, bathed in microwave energy, they vibrate. They oscillate between two energy states in a rhythm so regular, so dependable, that it became a kind of universal heartbeat. 1 second, as defined by international agreement, is the time it takes for a cesium-133 atom to oscillate. 9, 192, 6 to 31, 770 times. Yes, 9,192,631,770 wobbles. Not a second more, not a second less. Each tick, an invisible vibration. Each second, a curtain falling between one moment and the next. and these clocks tucked in laboratories, mounted in satellites, floating through orbit are the backbone of your everyday life, your phone, your GPS, your computer. Even the global stock markets depend on these seconds being exact, so exact that an atomic clock would only lose about 1 second every 100 million years. Let that sink in. You could fall asleep now and wake up in another epoch, and cesium would still be ticking, perfectly on time. But here's the mystery. Why should atoms tick at all? Why do particles so small we cannot see them dance to rhythms that never falter? No one fully knows. Quantum mechanics gives us a framework and understanding of energy states and quantum transitions, but the deeper answer, the why behind the pattern, remains hidden. Some say time is born from change, from entropy, from the arrow that points from order to disorder. Others wonder if time is not a thing at all, but an illusion created by consciousness, the brain stitching events into sequence. But cesium doesn't care for questions. It hums regardless. It ticks without metaphor. And still you are drawn to it. Because even though this rhythm is alien, even though it belongs to machines, you feel its pull. In the quiet click of a stopwatch, in the rhythm of countdowns and deadlines, in the whisper of a calendar page turned, this is the second you've come to know. Defined not by starlight or song, but by the pulse of atoms. You don't feel the cesium beat, but you live by it, and yet, this perfect second, this atomic second, doesn't quite match your inner world. Your breath doesn't move at 9 billion oscillations. Your heart doesn't care for decimal places. Your dreams do not obey the laws of atomic physics. You're softer than that, more fluid. Because even though cesium defines the second, you define its meaning. To a machine, a second is a cycle. To you, it's a blink, a thought, a feeling. 1 second is the pause before you speak, the last note in a song, the moment you decide to stay or to leave. That's what makes the second so strange. It is objective, measured in physics, stamped in digital time, but it is also subjective, stretching in sorrow, racing in fear, pausing in love. Your seconds are not the same as anyone else's, and still we pretend they are. We set our clocks. We sync our devices. We agree to meet at 3:00 p.m. as if we all feel the same rhythm. But you don't. You live in your own stream, even now, as the cesium ticks in some lab far away. You are floating in a moment that feels longer than it measures, and that's the beauty. Cesium counts the seconds, but you give them colour. You fill them with breath. You shape them with attention. You let them expand into something more than numbers. So rest easy. Dear listener, the atoms will keep ticking. The clocks will keep counting. You can simply feel this second as it arrives like mist, as it lingers like warmth, as it leaves like a thought you almost remembered. Perfect, but untouchable. Just like now. You're closer now. Closer to yourself. Closer to the quiet hum of your senses. The breath moves gently. The bones lie still. And yet, within you, so many signals are still moving. Because the present moment, even in stillness, is not frozen. It's a dance. A quiet sequence of signals moving from sensation to recognition to meaning. And tonight, you follow one of those paths, a single, simple moment. You lift a hand in your imagination or in your bed and press a fingertip softly against something nearby. Maybe it's the blanket, or the air, or your other hand. You feel contact. You feel now. But what you're really feeling is the past wrapped in a delay so small you never noticed. Let's walk the path together. When your skin touches something, it's not your brain that knows first, it's your nerves. Tiny receptors in the skin detect pressure, texture, temperature. They convert the sensation into a signal, an electrical impulse, and send it racing along your nerves, from your hand, through your arm, up the spinal cord, into the thalamus, a kind of relay station in the brain, and then finally to the somatosensory cortex, the region that maps the body and whispers you're touching something. It happens fast, in mere tens of milliseconds, but not instantly. Even the quickest signals, those travelling along myelinated nerves, only reach speeds of about 120 meters per second. That's fast, but not faster than time, which means by the time your brain tells you, I felt that, you already have. You always feel the echo, not the event. Even your thoughts trail behind your body, and your body, in turn, is always reacting before your mind speaks up. This becomes clear in reflexes. Touch a hot stove, and you pull back before you think to, because the signal never reached your brain at all. It looped through the spinal cord, a shortcut acting on your behalf. Only afterward does the brain say, that was hot, and suddenly, the second you thought was yours has already passed. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that you're always a little bit late to your own experience, but that doesn't make it less real. It makes it more beautiful. Because you are not a static point. You are a flowing stream of reaction, perception, adjustment, reflection. You are not the second itself. You're the unfolding of it. The brain works hard to make you feel like it's all immediate. It predicts, it edits, it synchronizes, it aligns the music of your senses into a single, harmonious beat. So even though your eyes, your ears, your fingertips are all sending signals at different speeds, you experience them as now, unified, seamless, felt. This illusion of simultaneity is one of your mind's greatest tricks, and it works so well that you never know it's a trick at all, until a delay breaks through, like when sound lags behind a video, or when an echo repeats your voice just a fraction too late. Suddenly, you're aware that perception takes time, that a second has depth. It's not a flat slice, it's a volume, a train of signals arriving in waves, then stitched together by the story your mind tells. Even when you reach for something, your brain sends the movement before you consciously decide to move. Experiments in neuroscience show that readiness potentials, a kind of electrical preparation in the brain, begin before we're aware we've made a choice. You think, now I'll touch the cup, but the action started seconds earlier. And still, you feel it as one clean moment, 1 second, one decision, one sensation. As if thought, movement, and feeling happened together. They didn't, but they felt like they did. Because your mind wants you to live in the illusion of presence, a second, for the brain, isn't just a unit of time. It's a story boundary, a window wide enough to gather the world and say, this is me, right now, and that's enough. You don't need to feel the nanoseconds. You don't need to notice the travel time. You just need to feel here, and you do. Even though your touch has already happened, even though your thoughts are a beat behind, even though your voice comes back to you slightly changed, the present moment is still yours, not because it's immediate, but because it feels complete. So rest in that wholeness. Let your hand settle. Let the sensation echo. Let the story of now unfold like ripples moving outward from a single fingertip. And let each second continue to arrive quietly delayed, but perfectly in time. You're floating now, not in time itself, but in its edges, the soft, half-lit borderlands where moments almost happen, but don't. Not every second makes it through. Some rise then vanish, like bubbles breaking just beneath the surface. These are the seconds that nearly were the ones your brain began to build, but quietly abandoned. Thoughts that flickered for a millisecond. Ideas that softened before they ever turned to words. Sensations you nearly noticed but didn't. This realm is real. Inside your brain, there's a constant hum of beginnings, tiny sparks of activity, spreading like ripples across the neural sea. But not all ripples become waves. Not all signals become sensations. You're never aware of most of them. And yet, they shape the terrain of your mind, the unseen seconds, the hidden almosts. Right now, your brain is alive with electricity. Billions of neurons, each reaching out to thousands of others, firing, pausing, dancing, a staggering 86 billion neurons, weaving a map of possibility every single second. But only a small fraction of that dance reaches your awareness. The rest, they whisper to themselves. They flash and fade. They help choose the path your thoughts might take, but not the one they do. In neuroscience, this is sometimes called preconscious processing. It's the activity that happens before you know, before you feel, before you say, I see. Imagine it like an orchestra warming up. All the instruments try a note. Some louder, some softer. Only a few will play in the final song, but every one of them mattered. Every one of them shaped the air. Your thoughts work this way, too. They emerge from the quiet hum of neurons testing possibilities, discarding paths, resonating with certain frequencies and letting others fade. You may think you decided something in a flash, but underneath that flash was a cascade of seconds you never saw, each one contributing a brushstroke to the image that became your awareness. And this doesn't only apply to thoughts. It happens with memory, emotion, even movement. Some seconds begin in your muscles but are silenced before you act. Some feelings rise in your body but never become names. These are the non-events that form the skeleton of now. You live not only through what happens, but through what almost does. There's gentle kind of poetry in that. You're not just the result of what you did, but of what you could have done. Of the seconds you skipped, the thoughts you didn't follow, the words you chose not to speak, and even though they never arrived, they leave a trace, a hush, a curve, a breath. Sometimes you feel them in déjà vu, in the sense that you almost remembered something, in the quiet shiver of what if. Some scientists wonder whether even consciousness itself is just the tip of a vast preconscious iceberg, that what you know is merely what survives the filters, and everything else. It still matters. It still hums, because awareness is precious. It takes energy, focus, space, so your brain saves it for what's needed, what's urgent, what resonates, and the rest. The unchosen seconds, they are background music. They are brushstrokes behind the portrait. They are air. You don't need to hold them. They were never meant to be held, but you can feel their warmth as they pass by, gentle ghosts of thought who almost became now. So if you ever feel like a second slip through your fingers, remember it was never lost. It was simply part of the unseen flow that carries you. You don't need to capture every second. You don't need to be present for all of them. You're already immersed in a river of maybes, and some of the softest truths float by unnoticed but still shape who you are. You don't need to remember all of this. There's nothing to solve here. Just let the ideas drift through you like a breeze that brushes your thoughts and moves on without asking to stay. Close your eyes for a while, if they aren't already closed. Let your breath deepen. Let your imagination rest. You're already where you need to be. The next second will come, and you don't need to reach for it. You're gliding now into a softer realm, the hush beneath waking, where time loosens its belt and slips quietly out of form. You've been here before, though perhaps not fully. The place where the seconds become strange, where they twist, fold, extend themselves like shadows at sunset or vanish entirely like stars in morning fog. You're inside a dream, and it dreams. The rules of time no longer hold, not in the way you expect. Have you ever woken after what felt like hours of dreaming, only to find you've slept for 10 minutes or closed your eyes for a brief nap and lived a lifetime in the span of a few breaths? This is not illusion. This is the way time behaves when it is no longer being watched. Your brain, in sleep, does not obey the same rhythms. It steps off the tracks. It drifts through soft corridors where sequence, duration, and causality become water. Dreams unfold in what scientists call subjective time. Time as it feels, not as it's measured. A second in a dream might hold a whole conversation, a single glance, a memory, a transformation. It is not packed, like a suitcase. It is unfolded, like a sky. In REM sleep, the stage where the most vivid dreams occur, your brain is highly active, almost as active as when you're awake. But there's no external clock, no anchor, no feedback from the world. So your inner rhythms take over, they stretch, compress. Weave time like thread through a needle with no end, and you feel it all as real, not dream real, but truly real. Because in that moment, even if the moment isn't measurable, your awareness is present. And presence, as you've learned, is how you know time exists. It is not just movement, it is meaningful movement, even when that meaning is surreal. In dreams, you may begin in a forest and end up in a memory from a house that no longer exists. But you don't question the path. You accept the unfolding as natural. Your dream self doesn't ask, "How long did that take?" It just moves. This is because your dreaming brain operates with reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, planning, and time awareness. And when that region sleeps, your seconds become elastic, and still you remember them. Sometimes with detail, sometimes only with a feeling, a colour, a sentence that didn't quite finish. But the experience remains. A second that felt like a century. A minute that felt like love. And even though time moved strangely, you still lived it. Some researchers have tested this. They've trained lucid dreamers to count inside their dreams, to tap their fingers, or flex a muscle a certain number of times and signal when done. When compared to waking time, the dream counts are often slightly longer. Time feels real, but it doesn't match reality. And yet, does it matter? You are still there, still immersed, still inside the moment. So perhaps the second doesn't always need to be accurate. Perhaps it only needs to be enough to feel something, enough to remember something, enough to return with a story from a place outside the clock. Your dreams don't ask you to be precise. They ask you to feel. They say, "Come in." The doors open. You won't be late here. There's no schedule, only rhythm, only breath. Only the soft unfolding of one moment into another without resistance. And when you wake, you bring back only what can fit in the hands of memory. A sentence, a face, the echo of falling, a second that couldn't be measured, but meant something anyway. You've wandered far tonight. You don't need to understand all of it. You don't need to collect the pieces. Let your thoughts drift, like dream clouds dissolving into dawn. If your eyes are closed, keep them closed. If your breath is shallow, let it deepen now, slowly, gently. No effort. You're already within the second. No need to chase it. Let it carry you, just like this dream. The dream fades now, like fog lifting from a meadow, leaving behind a warmth that doesn't need explanation. You're still weightless, still drifting, but now the softness has sharpened just slightly. You're inside your own mind, not in the way thoughts feel, not the chatter or the pictures or the loops, but deeper. You are moving beneath it all, beneath awareness, beneath language, beneath even sensation, into the space between the sparks. You're watching a single neuron fire. It begins with a pulse, a quiet signal, a shift in charge. And like a candle reaching for another wick, it sends its message outward, but it cannot connect directly. It must leap across a tiny, liquid space. This space so unimaginably small is called a synapse, and inside it, seconds behave like whispers. Quiet, fragmented, full of meaning, but almost always invisible. To pass the message, the first neuron releases neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that drift across the gap, seek in tiny receptors on the next neuron's surface. When they find them, a new signal begins, and the rhythm continues. This happens over and over again. Between billions of neurons, trillions of synapses, and in each leap, each pause between spark and reception, there is time. A fraction of a second, milliseconds, usually, but enough. Enough for something to almost happen, or not, because sometimes the message doesn't make it, or it's ignored, or it's inhibited by another signal arriving just a moment too soon. So in these spaces, in these microscopic silences, some seconds begin, but never become. They are seconds that flicker like tiny match heads in the rain. This is where you live in the dance of fire and rest, leap and fall, attempt and adjustment. Not every signal becomes awareness. Not every signal becomes thought, but everyone takes time, time to prepare, time to cross, time to be received. And that time, those tiny slivers of waiting may be where the second hides. Because here's something stranger still. Your neurons don't just pass information, they decide. A neuron only fires if it receives enough stimulation, enough encouragement within a certain window of time. It waits. It listens. It weighs its inputs. And if the timing is off by even a few milliseconds, the signal might vanish. This timing is called temporal summation, and it determines whether a second becomes real or fades before it's born. Isn't that gentle and extraordinary? Even your thoughts have to earn their rhythm. Even your mind waits for the right moment before it says yes. And it's all happening beneath your awareness, beneath your language, beneath your identity. Right now, millions of neurons are waiting for just the right pause, just the right overlap, just the right second to fire again. And when they do, you'll think, or move, or feel, or dream. But between those events, between every known thing, is a field of not quite yet, a mist of maybe, a synaptic space where seconds are potential, not presence. Here's something you might like to hold. Some scientists believe this synaptic uncertainty may be the birthplace of free will, because while neurons follow chemical rules, the system as a whole is complex, dynamic, unpredictable, meaning you're not a machine. You're a constellation of tiny decisions, timed to perfection or silence. And all of it happens inside the second, inside the space where one neuron speaks and another listens just in time, or not. And still, you go on thinking, you go on being, you go on living in a rhythm made of sparks and silences, connections and gaps. It's not seamless, but it is yours. You don't need to understand all of this. You don't need to map it out or memorize where the neurons go. Just let the image float for a moment, a flicker, a spark, a soft gap between thoughts. Close your eyes again, if they've wandered open. Let your breath slow, just slightly. You're made of these pauses, and you are resting beautifully inside one now. You are rising now, out of the mind, out of the nerves, out of the humming synapses and the quiet seconds that tried to arrive. You're lifting gently, as if caught on a breath that belongs to the earth itself. Below you, the planet spins a slow, grand turning that never stops, never asks for applause, never loses track of the rhythm, and wrapped around that sphere like invisible ribbons are the strange creations we call time zones. We made them, not the earth, not the stars, not even the atoms. Us. We carved the world into hours, dividing it not by nature but by agreement. And now, as you hover above this blue marble, you see something peculiar. It is 8:02 in one city, and 9:02 in the next. The sun hasn't changed. The air hasn't moved, but the second is no longer the same. One person is making tea, another is brushing their teeth, a third is just waking. Each of them believes it is now, and each of them is right, but none of them share the same second. This is the illusion of shared time, the idea that we are synchronized, marching together through a singular now. We are not. We are constantly misaligned by hours, by minutes, by the very idea of where we are. Time zones were born out of necessity, a way to make trains run on schedule, a way to answer the question, when should we meet before time zones? Each town kept its own local solar time set by the position of the sun. Noon was when the sun was directly overhead. But when railroads expanded, this became chaos. Arrival times meant nothing. Departures were confused, so we agreed. Let's divide the Earth into 24 slices, each representing 1 hour, each slice about 15 degrees wide. And just like that, we carved the flowing moment into boxes, and ever since, we've lived inside those boxes as if they were natural. But they're not. There are irregularities, half-hour time zones, places that don't observe daylight saving, countries that span many hours but only use one. There is no cosmic law that says it's 300 here and 400 there. Only consensus. Only story. Even the international date line, that jagged boundary in the Pacific, decides whether today is today or tomorrow. Cross it westward, and you jump forward a full day. Cross it eastward, and you fall back. Not because time truly shifts, but because we've agreed to pretend it does. And still, it works. We make calls, we catch planes, we share meals across continents, we write messages that begin, "Good morning from here." even though we do not share the same light, the same shadow, the same second. But maybe that's the miracle, that we can be scattered across hours, across hemispheres, across sleep and waking, and still feel connected to one unfolding moment. Because while we do not live in a unified now, we live in an interwoven one. Each second we experience is stitched together with someone else's second. Your sunset is someone else's dawn. Your middle of the night is their midday. And together we make a planet that never stops ticking, always sleeping, always waking, always dreaming. There is never a moment when the whole earth is at rest, nor one when it is entirely awake, and yet you are always in your own now, and that is real. You don't need to adjust yourself. You don't need to calculate what hour it is for others. You don't even need to stay awake for much longer. Let your shoulders drop. Let your thoughts soften. You're in your time zone, your light, your version of now. And that's the only second you ever need to rest in. You're still floating above the earth, watching its painted clouds curl softly across oceans. But something warmer begins to rise within you now, a flicker, a shimmer, a feeling that doesn't belong to time, but somehow always happens inside it. Tonight, you drift gently into a single second that changed everything, not because it was long, but because it was complete. They say you can fall in love in a second, that something in your chest recognizes something in someone else even before you know why. A glance, a sound, a nearness, a stillness. You don't plan for it. You don't count down. It just happens. And then the world, however slightly, tilts. The colors change. The breath moves differently. The air becomes heavier and somehow sweeter. You're not falling into a lifetime, not yet. You're falling into a moment, a second that contains more sensation than you expected to be possible. Scientists study this too. Not love, exactly, but the brain's instant responses to emotion. When people are shown a photograph of someone they find beautiful, the amygdala lights up that tiny almond-shaped region tied to feeling and memory. And it does so in less than half a second. Before you even form a conscious thought, your brain has already decided this means something. Your pupils may dilate, your heart may shift. Your attention anchors itself like a magnet to a curve of a cheek, a sound of a laugh, a quiet pause in conversation. These changes are not gradual. They unfold in seconds, and yet they last. That's the paradox. The most important things often begin in moments you didn't know you were inside of until they were already gone. You don't always remember the exact second you fell in love, but you remember the feeling. You remember what came after. You remember the world before and the world since. And that's how you know the second existed. It may not have been measured, but it made a mark. And it isn't just romance. Think of any connection, any spark of recognition between souls. A friend you knew would matter after 5 minutes. A stranger who smiled and made the street feel different. Sometimes it's not even a person. It's a moment in nature. The sound of waves you hadn't heard in years. A bird call that pierced a quiet morning. A tree you suddenly realized was older than your regrets. And in that 1 second your chest opens. You forget to be afraid. You simply feel pure, wordless, whole. It's called a liminal moment, a threshold between what was and what might be. The second stretches, softens, glows. It doesn't obey the clock. It doesn't check your schedule. It simply arrives. And your body, without needing to understand, says yes. Here's something tender. Your brain records emotional memories differently than ordinary ones. Moments that carry strong feeling, especially awe, joy, grief, or love, are encoded more deeply, with more detail. Not because they last longer, but because they feel full. 1 second can hold more than an hour ever could. And sometimes, when you return to a memory, you find that it's grown, not in duration, but in depth, because love, in all its forms, stretches the second from the inside out. So whether you're recalling someone dear, or simply remembering the way morning light once touched your pillow in a forgotten room, know this. You're not just remembering the past, you are reliving a second that never stopped echoing. You don't have to reach for these memories. You don't need to name them. You don't even need to open your eyes. Let whatever warmth rises, rise. Let your breath move through it. Let your mind rest gently in the soft glow of a second that meant something, even if you never quite understood why. You're drifting now towards something ancient, not mechanical, not atomic, but alive, moving, endlessly returning. You arrive beside the sea. Its breath is slower than yours, but steady. Its rhythm is different, but unmistakably present. You feel the cool wind touch your skin. You hear the hush of waves pulling in and out, each one a question answered by another. The sea has no clocks, no hands, no numerals, no ticking seconds, but it knows time. It always has. You lie there, watching a single wave swell, peak, and fade back into foam. It takes several seconds, longer than a blink, shorter than a thought. Then another follows, then another. This, too, is time. Not carved into seconds, but into movement, into tides. Every 6 hours or so, the sea lifts itself. Every 6 hours after that, it retreats. High tide, low tide. And this motion is not random. It is choreographed by the moon. The moon pulls on the Earth's water, like a parent gently lifting a sleeping child, and the water responds slowly, faithfully, always. This cycle the lunar tide has been moving for billions of years, long before seconds were counted, long before we built watches, long before we named time at all, and yet it is precise. So precise that early civilizations used the tides to measure time before they ever imagined calendars. Because the ocean doesn't forget. It remembers when to rise, when to fall, not in seconds but in gravity, in celestial memory. Even now, scientists can predict future tides years ahead, based on the moon's orbit, the Earth's tilt, the sea's patterns. There are algorithms for this ancient motion, formulas that describe it perfectly, but to lie beside it to feel it is something else entirely. You feel the second not as a unit, but as a swell. Each wave you hear is a fragment of that larger breath. The ocean is inhaling, the ocean is exhaling, and you, by simply lying there, are breathing with it, somewhere far beneath the surface. The ocean keeps even deeper rhythms currents that circle the globe over the course of months, years, lifetimes. These are called thermohaline currents, driven by salt, by temperature, by density. They are slow, unfathomably slow, but constant. They are the ocean's ancient clocks, not ticking, flowing, and you are part of it. You're mostly water, you too, move in rhythms. Perhaps that's why the ocean calms you, not just because it's wide, or deep, or blue, but because it matches a rhythm your body remembers, even if your mind has forgotten. Before you knew the word second, you knew the sound of your mother's heartbeat. You knew the pulse of her voice vibrating through fluid. You knew the rhythm of waves long before you knew what time was. So here, on this imagined shore, you're not counting seconds. You're listening for them, letting them pass like waves that do not need to crash to be real. Because the ocean is patient. It has never rushed a tide, and still, it always arrives. You don't need to rise yet. You don't need to keep track. Let your thoughts ebb and flow. Let your chest lift and fall. You are part of this tide, and the tide asks nothing from you but rest. The sea fades behind you, its breath becoming your own. And now you find yourself lying beneath a vast open sky, a sky so quiet you almost forget it moves. The stars are above you now fixed, at first glance, like silver pins in velvet. They twinkle, but they do not rush. They do not mark seconds with the crispness of a clock. But if you wait, if you really wait, you'll see that they do move. Just not quickly, not fast enough for the impatient second, but fast enough for time. Look at the constellations: Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major. They are where you remember them from childhood mostly, and yet, over decades, they shift. Each star is a sun, moving through the galaxy at tens of thousands of miles per hour. But their great distance makes their motion feel still. Each second is too short to show the drift. You would need years, even centuries, to see the change. This is called proper motion, the slow dance of stars across the sky that is invisible in real time but undeniable in retrospect. Even the North Star, Polaris, won't always point north, because Earth, too, is wobbling just slightly like a spinning top losing speed in slow motion. This wobble, called axial precession, takes about 26,000 years to complete a full circle. So the North Star changes. It has before. It will again. Time here is not measured in seconds, but in epochs. And yet, you can still feel it. Because some part of you knows you're standing on a spinning ball, hurtling through space around a star that moves around a galaxy that is itself expanding. You don't feel the motion, but it's there. Even the sun rises and sets just slowly enough that we mark it not in instants, but in hours. And still, have you ever watched a sunrise begin? There's a moment, a breath, when the light changes, and you know a second has passed, one that matters, because even though the sky moves slowly, the awareness of it can arrive in a flash. That flash, that realization is your moment of presence. It may take the stars thousands of years to shift their places, but for you, a second is enough to feel their silence. Here's something gentle to consider. Some of the starlight you see left its star hundreds of years ago, that twinkle above you. It might be from a star that no longer exists. Its final photon still travelling, still arriving, still being witnessed. So even in the sky, some seconds are out of order. You see the past as if it were now. You touch moments that no longer are, and yet they shine. So when you wonder, can a second ever be touched? Perhaps the answer is yes, but not always in the present. Sometimes the second that moves you comes from long ago. Sometimes the now is built on something you can never reach again. And still, it finds you like starlight, soft, delayed, unstoppable. You've been gently floating through centuries tonight. You don't need to understand it all. You don't need to hold every detail. Let it pass through you, like wind through the branches. like stars across a sky too slow to follow, but too beautiful to ignore. Close your eyes once more. Feel the earth turning under you. You don't have to move. It carries you perfectly. The second will arrive. You need only rest. You're not looking at the stars now. You're listening. Somewhere, not far from thought, a single note begins. You don't know what instrument it comes from. It could be a piano, or a cello, or a voice. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the note hovers, not long, not short, just enough. You hear it swell, vibrate, fade. And in that fading in the space between its sound and its silence, you feel something deep. A second. Not the kind that ticks, but the kind that lives in music. A second that lingers. Because music is made of time, not just pitch or melody, but duration. The shape of a note is a shape in time, too short, and the melody feels rushed, too long, and it feels heavy, uncertain, but just right, and it breathes. It opens something in you that you didn't know needed opening. This is the gentle truth of rhythm. It's not made of perfect clocks. It's made of expectation and release. You listen, not only to what is played, but to when it is played. Your brain anticipates. It leans forward into silence. It waits for the next beat, like waiting for a reply in a quiet conversation. And when the note arrives on time, just after, or a moment too soon, you feel it. Not just hear it, feel it. Because music teaches you to inhabit time, to stretch it, to hold it, to let it go. Even silence in music has weight. That pause between notes, a rest, is not an absence. It's an invitation, an unspoken second that allows you to absorb what came before. Think of your favourite song, the moment where everything stops, just for a beat, before it begins again. That's where the second lives, not in the sound, but in the suspension. And that suspension, that breath between, is where feeling gathers. Some composers knew this intimately. Mozart, Debussy, Satie. They understood that the second is not only marked by sound, but by its absence. Music is not just what you hear, it's what you wait for. And your brain is beautifully built for this. Even infants can detect rhythm. Even animals move to beat. There is something ancient about our connection to musical time. Your heartbeat, your breath, the footsteps of your walk, all form a kind of meter. You're already a composition. And here's something curious. When you remember music, you often replay it at the correct speed. Your brain doesn't just store the melody, it stores the seconds. So even in memory, a second can echo. Even in silence, a second can sing. Perhaps that's why we turn to music when words fail, when grief arrives, when love begins, when endings come. Because in those moments, we need a second that understands what we feel. And music gives it to us, without asking, without measuring, just offering a note, a rest, a rhythm, and you with your quiet, waiting body meet it perfectly, not with thought, but with feeling. Let the melody fade now. There's no need to hold on to it. Let your imagination grow quiet, like a concert hall after the final note has settled into velvet air. You don't need to analyze the rhythm. You don't need to remember the chords. Just breathe. Let silence become your music for now. There is rhythm in your rest, and the next second will arrive exactly when it should. The music dissolves, but something lingers, not a sound, but a sense that the second is more fragile than it seems. You're floating now, not in melody, but in mystery. down, down, into a place so small it defies size, a space so chaotic that order becomes suggestion. You're entering the quantum realm. And here, time is not smooth. It is not kind. It is not steady. It flickers. It jumps. It refuses to behave. Welcome to the fabric beneath everything. This is where seconds become strange. At this scale, where particles wink in and out of existence, where uncertainty is law, where nothing sits still, our ordinary sense of time begins to crumble. Physicists call it quantum foam, a jittering, seething field at the smallest imaginable scale, the Planck scale, where space and time themselves may fluctuate. At this level, it's not just particles that are uncertain, it's when things happen that becomes unclear. There is no neat sequence, no this, then that, just probabilities. One moment may lead to another, or it might not. There are whispers in this field, fluctuations of energy that arise from nothing and vanish again in less than a heartbeat. Virtual particles, ghosts of interaction, a ballet that never settles. Time here isn't measured in seconds, it's questioned. Some theories suggest that at the quantum level, time may be emergent, not fundamental, not real in the way space is. That time, as you know it, may only exist because of the way matter behaves at larger scales. Imagine that. The second you cling to might not exist at all, or perhaps it waits, hidden, woven deep into the trembling of reality, but too shy to show itself until consciousness calls it forward. In quantum experiments, we've seen particles behave like waves, like possibilities, until someone watches, and only then, with observation, do they decide where to be, when to be. It's called wave function collapse, and it doesn't just raise questions about particles, it whispers something deeper. Is time itself waiting to be noticed? Some physicists have suggested that causality, the idea that one thing causes another, might be suspended in the quantum world, that a particle may influence something else before it even arrives. It's called retrocausality. It defies logic. It defies clocks. But at the quantum level, logic bends. Here's something stranger still. In 2020, a group of researchers created an experiment where particles were entangled in such a way that the order of events became indefinite. A happened before B, and B happened before A, not in sequence, in superposition, time stacked instead of lined up, and still the system worked. So maybe the second doesn't always move forward, maybe it folds, maybe it waits, maybe it lives in layers we haven't learned to feel yet, and maybe the now you experience is only one flavour of what time can be, because at this scale, the universe doesn't tick, it shivers, and those shivers, stacked across atoms and cells and breath, become the seconds you live in. But underneath, nothing moves in a straight line, and the second that seems so solid is built from questions with no clear answers. You don't need to understand all this. You're not meant to solve the puzzle tonight. Let the quantum flutter be background noise. Let the strange beauty of uncertainty wrap around you like mist. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and if they're already closed, deepen the stillness behind them. You're not falling behind. You're not running ahead. You're exactly where you need to be in the rhythm that waits for no one but always holds you. You've been far deep into atoms, into particles that don't know what before or after means. But now, you float upward again, gently, through layers of thought, through feelings stored in silence, and you find yourself not in the present, not in the future, but in a memory, a real one, not a fact, not a date, but a moment. You didn't ask for it. It just rose like a scent you hadn't smelled in years, or the taste of a childhood fruit suddenly blooming behind your tongue, and in that instant, you're there again. The place, the light, the shape of someone's laugh. You can almost reach out and touch the second as if it never left. How is it possible to relive something that ended so long ago? It has to do with the way memory works, or more precisely, the way it feels. When you recall a moment vividly, your brain reactivates some of the very same regions that lit up when the event first occurred. The hippocampus, the amygdala, the visual cortex, they all flicker again in a similar way. In that sense, you aren't just remembering, you're re-experiencing. And the second you recall isn't old, not in your body, not in your breath. It lives again, just for a moment. That's why certain memories feel immediate. They override the distance. They collapse the space between then and now. You don't need to close your eyes to feel them, though it helps. You just need to soften your awareness. Let a thread tug loose. And suddenly, a second that belonged to another year belongs to this one. The past becomes present. Not because time rewinds, but because memory folds time inward. In these folds, a second can hide for decades, and when it returns, it's as vivid as anything you lived this morning. Maybe even more vivid. Why? Because memory is curated. Your brain doesn't store everything. It stores what matters, what burned brightly, what made you pause. Those seconds, the shining ones, are kept close. Not in a drawer, not in a file, but in your very perception of self. You are, in many ways, a string of moments you never fully let go of. A walk by the sea, a look from someone you miss, the light through a window at just the right hour on just the right day. And when those seconds return, they do not ask permission. They arrive, they shimmer, they say, "Remember me, I'm still here." And here's something even more beautiful. Your memory reshapes them. Each time you recall a moment, you edit it slightly, you touch it, you colour it, you change the details without meaning to. So the second becomes not what was, but what is to you now. Your memories evolve with you. And so the seconds within them are always alive, never frozen, never fixed. They are reflections in a moving stream, still beautiful, still yours, and still filled with the quiet question, am I now, or then? Perhaps the answer is both, because in memory, a second does not disappear. It waits, softly, lovingly, like a favourite coat hanging near the door, ready to be worn again, just for a little while. There's no need to chase any particular memory. If one has come to you, let it stay as long as it wants. If none have, let the stillness be your company instead. You don't need to remember everything. You don't need to name the past. Just rest in the knowing that some seconds never leave, and maybe tonight they're resting beside you. You're gliding now along a strange edge of time, not into the stars, or the past, or a neuron's spark, but into the quiet office of a scientist who looks up at a digital clock and notices something odd. Time is slightly off, not by hours, not by minutes, but by a second. Just one, a single, drifting second. And instead of ignoring it, they do something gentle, something almost no one feels. They add it back in. This is called a leap second, a moment that wasn't planned, but had to be created because even Earth sometimes forgets to count perfectly. You see, the Earth spins. That's how we get days. Sunrise, sunset, shadows moving across rooftops. We used to think this rotation was constant, but it's not. The Earth is slowing down, very gradually, very subtly. Tides pulled by the moon create a kind of friction that tugs at Earth's spin, like a hand gently dragging on a spinning top. So over time, our days are getting longer, not by much, just milliseconds. But when you're trying to sync atomic clocks with the rotation of the planet, even a tiny drift matters. Atomic clocks like the cesium rhythm you visited earlier tick perfectly. Earth, however, does not. So every few years, when the difference grows too wide, scientists add a leap second to keep everything aligned. They insert it at the end of a day, usually on December 31st or June 30th, so the clock reads 23:59:60. Yes, 60 seconds instead of 59, and then time continues as usual, as if nothing ever happened. Most people don't notice. But satellites, servers, GPS systems, and global communications all feel it. Because a second is not just a moment, it's a standard. And when the standard drifts, everything else does too. But here's the wonder, we built clocks to be perfect, and yet we still measure time against the sky, against the turning earth, against the moonlit tide, against shadows on ancient stone. Because no matter how precise we become, we still want our seconds to mean something real. We want time to match the world we live in, so we adjust. Not often, but gently. We forgive the earth its wobble, its slowness, its imperfection. We allow for it. We say, it's okay. Let's add a second. Let's catch up. And somehow, this makes time feel more human, because we, too, are imperfect. We drift. We fall behind. We forget the rhythm. We skip a beat. We catch up late. And still, we are allowed back into the moment. One breath, one pause, one extra second. That's all it takes. So maybe you, too, can add a leap second to your day. Second where nothing is asked, nothing is achieved, nothing is rushed. Just one sliver of space to pause, to forgive the spin, to realign with yourself. Because time will keep moving, but it can be softened, it can be reshaped, it can include space for rest. You don't need to measure that second now. You don't need to know when it was added or what the clock read. Just know this time isn't rigid. Even our most perfect systems leave room for kindness. Close your eyes once more. Let your thoughts drift like the slow spin of the earth. You're not late. You're not behind. You're simply in a leap second of your own. And it's enough. You're almost there now. Not at the end, but at the outer edge of what the second usually holds. You've wandered through clocks and oceans, synapses and dreams, memories and melodies, and now you float into the rarest part of all, a moment where the second asks nothing from you. No action, no thought, no awareness, just stillness. This is where time continues, but no one watches. No countdown, no goal, no pulse to match, no word to wait for. It is the quiet that lives beyond meaning. You've been here before, though you may not have noticed. In the final moment before sleep, that strange slipping when even your own name seems distant. In deep meditation, where thoughts arrive like leaves and disappear before they land. In grief, when the days move but time itself feels paused, or in awe a canyon, a cathedral, a newborn's first breath when you feel something vast and words don't help. These are moments where the second is no longer about sequence, it's about space, a space you do not need to fill. You're drifting now through one of those seconds, and the strange thing, it still exists. The earth turns, your body breathes, atoms spin, but you're not chasing anything inside it, and that makes all the difference. We live most of our lives trying to use the second, to do something with it, to prove we were there, but there is another way to be inside time. Let it pass without requiring it to be useful. Let it exist without measuring it against effort. This is what some mystics have called the eternal present, not because it lasts forever, but because, for a brief moment, you forget to check the clock. You simply are. Here's something you may not know. In physics, there is no single now, no universal moment that applies to all observers in all places. Einstein showed us this with relativity. If you're moving fast enough, or in a strong enough gravitational field, time bends, it warps, it stretches. Two people in two places can disagree on whether two things happened at the same time, and both of them are right. This means now is not fixed. It is relative, fluid, situational. And yet when you enter this state, this stillness beyond meaning, you feel more present than ever before, because you are no longer trying to grasp the second. You are simply letting it hold you. You are not the observer. You are the moment. And in this moment, there is nothing to prove, no lesson to extract, no memory to store, no meaning to craft, just breath, just awareness, just the shape of your own stillness against the shape of time. Even your brain begins to shift here, in moments of deep rest or flow. Default mode networks in your mind quiet down. You stop narrating your life. You stop rehearsing. You stop rehashing. You simply are. And when you emerge again, because you will, you'll feel that something has changed. Not because you did anything, but because you didn't. Because you allowed the second to exist without asking it to matter. And somehow, that made it more real. You don't need to shape this moment. Let it be quiet. Let it be formless. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to name it. You're already resting in a second that lets go of all urgency and simply floats beside you like a feather drifting on a breath. Close your eyes, and if they're already closed, let your awareness grow even softer. You're not missing anything. You're already inside everything. You've wandered gently, my dear dreamer, through the folds and filaments of time, through neurons and oceans, through songs and stars, through atoms that tick and memories that ache. And now you're no longer beside the second, watching it drift by like a boat on a stream. You're inside it. More than that, you are it. There is no more observer, no more chase, no more question, only rhythm, only presence, only breath. Let your awareness soften completely now, like light dissolving into water. There is no rush. The air moves through you. Not fast, not slow, just right. This second is not made of numbers, not of definitions, not of clocks or calendars. It is made of you, of the stillness behind your eyes, of the kindness in your bones, of the soft pulse in your chest. You're not keeping time anymore. You're simply keeping space for this moment to exist. This is what the monks whispered about beneath temples carved from stone. This is what the physicist dreamed of when she stared at stars and asked, "Why now? Why this?" This is what the heartbeat meant when it waited in silence before beginning again. You're not late. You're not early. You're exactly where you need to be. And perhaps you've begun to see the truth that was here all along. A second is not something that passes. It is something you enter, something you share, something that becomes you as you soften into it. Some traditions say the soul is timeless. Others say the soul is time made flesh for a while, just to feel the gentle ache of presence. Whichever you believe, you are in it now, not looking at the second, not remembering it, not waiting for it to end, just breathing inside it until breathing itself becomes the whole world. And now, the world is quiet. You do not need to hold on. There is nothing else you need to do, no next moment to prepare for, no thought to reach toward, just this, the shape of you melting into the shape of now. And so, dear one, you've arrived where there is nothing left to chase. You've listened to the atoms hum, the tides breathe, the stars unfold their silent arms across the sky. You've felt the second as a spark, as a pause, as a doorway between everything and nothing. And now, you don't have to carry any of it. You don't have to remember. You don't have to define. You don't have to hold the thread. Let it all drift. Let it all soften. You're already inside the warmest part of time, not the measurable kind, but the kind that rests with you, like a cat curled at your feet, like a candle's glow just before sleep, like the feeling of someone brushing your hair with no need for words. There are no clocks here, no urgency, no before or after, only this endless, ever-opening second that wraps around you like a hush. So breathe now, deeper, slower. Let your thoughts quiet. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your awareness become featherlight and drift like starlight through a still room. You're not leaving time behind. You are resting within it. The second holds you, cradles you, keeps you company, until sleep, sweet and wide, gathers you gently into its fold. And when you wake again, the second will still be here, just as soft, just as quiet, just as kind. So sleep now. There's nowhere else to be. You're already here.